Okay, so this morning we're going to make the best scrambled eggs. Obviously at the moment eggs are pretty difficult to come by, so if you do manage to get hold of some, it's important that we do them justice. There are some key rules for when we're making the scrambled eggs, and the most important thing for me is what we cook them in, and that should be one thing only, and that's some butter. Don't put milk in your scrambled eggs. Okay, so we're going to start just by giving them a whisk up. Okay, only about 30 seconds light whisking. We don't want to overbeat them before they go in the pan. So we're just going to whisk them up lightly. Okay, so there we go. Whisk our eggs up. 5 eggs for 2 people, I reckon. 2.5 eggs each when we're doing scrambled eggs. Okay, now the next really important thing is no seasoning. We don't put any seasoning in until after we've cooked the eggs, because the salt can cause them to toughen and we don't want that. So the other key thing is time. So we have to cook scrambled eggs low and slow. Okay, we don't want to put them in a raging hot pan because they'll just cook too quickly. We want them to be soft and silky. So just throwing in 3 knobs of butter, and we're just going to let that melt. Don't want to get any colour on it, we just want it to coat the bottom of the pan. You can see I've got it on the medium ring here because we don't want them to cook too quickly. So I'm going to turn that all the way down to the lowest setting. So we're going to cook it over a nice gentle heat. Okay, so in with the eggs. And you shouldn't be able to hear any sizzling or anything at this point, because we just want to cook this very slowly. Okay? Should take a good 7 minutes or so. Alright. We don't want to move it around too much because we want nice, big, silky curds of egg. Okay? So you're in control of the heat here. I'm just going to turn this up a little bit. And I'm just going to move it round the pan and just pushing it with the spoon very gently. Okay, and timing's important here. So these will probably be done in another 3 or 4 minutes. So we need to be thinking about what we're serving it with. I'm just going to do it today very simply on some hot buttered toast, and all we can get at the moment is cheap white bread, which to be honest is the best thing to have scrambled eggs on anyway. So if you have a look now, you can see just in that time I've gone over, even though we're on a very low heat, the eggs are starting to come together. But they still look beautiful and silky. So it's about getting that balance between them still being nice and soft, but we don't want snotty bits of egg in there, so we need to make sure that we're just managing them very carefully. And just at the point here where you can't really see any uncooked white anymore, that's when we're going to control it. We're going to take it off the heat, turn the heat off, and this is the really important bit right at the end here, is that you're going to put in some extra butter. Okay, some room temperature butter, and what that does is that stops the eggs from cooking, turns the heat down in the pan, but adds that last little layer of velvetiness. Ooh. You see, got lovely silky eggs in the pan here. The smell of butter is amazing. And it's at this point I'm just going to chuck in a pinch of salt. If you're using molten salt, scrunch it through your hands so you don't get big crystals in there. Okay, and very simply just got some chopped chives from the herb garden outside. Just going to sprinkle those on top. So toast should be ready. I par toasted it before I put it in. So before I put the eggs in, I did the toast for a little bit, and now I've just finished it off. A little bit of butter on the toast. Eggs are off the heat now, and the butter will be helping them rest. Don't worry about the amount of butter you're using. We're on lockdown, we're going to have our special treats. And we're ready to serve our eggs up. If you look, they're really perfect. Nice and silky, they're not rubbery at all. My wife's filming this, so I better not shortchange her. There we go. Perfect scrambled egg. Okay, so today I'm going to do a very simple pasta dish. Most of what I'm cooking at the moment is being dictated by what I'm being sent in veg boxes and stuff. Not being able to get Tesco delivery slots, and we're shielding because my little boy has respiratory issues. So completely dictated by what's being sent, and got sent some beautiful courgettes today in our veg box. Got sent this lovely lemon and got sent some garlic as well. So going to make some very simple pasta. I'm going to chop up these courgettes, I'm going to slice the garlic and fry it off, and we're just going to have some pasta with some courgettes, some lemon, some olive oil. And you don't have to do this, it's completely optional, but I had some pesto left over in the freezer, some homemade pesto I made, which was just a handful of basil leaves, handful of pine nuts, some parmesan and some olive oil bashed up in a garlic clove, bashed up in a pestle and mortar. So I'm just going to chuck that in at the end. So, going to get cracking and slice this garlic. So I've just got some finely chopped garlic there, 4 cloves. Don't worry about garlic breath, we're self-isolating. If the person or people you're with don't have the garlic as well, they're missing out and they deserve your garlic breath. So, want a good coating of oil in the pan because it's going to help make some of the sauce. So a bit of oil in there. I'm just going to let that heat up whilst I slice up these courgettes. Okay, so my courgettes are now chopped, and at this point I'm going to add the pasta. And it's really important we give that water a good handful of salt as well. Hands up who always accidentally on purpose puts too much pasta in. In with our courgettes into this hot oil. And we just want to cook those quite gently. And here it's starting to sizzle here, so that they get some nice colour on them. We're not putting the garlic in yet because the garlic's not going to take very long to cook, and we don't want the garlic to burn because then it'll be bitter. Okay, so courgettes in, pinch of salt, and lots of black pepper. Alright, and we're just going to cook these, we're going to saute them quite slowly over a gentle heat. Okay, so my courgettes have had about 7 or 8 minutes now. You can see they've got a nice bit of colour on them. They've still got a bit of bite to them, they're not soft and mushy, and they're nicely caramelised on the outside. So at this point, go in my garlic, and I've grated some lemon zest of that lemon, which I'm just going to add as well. That's going to add a beautiful, beautiful perfume to the dish. So just adding that and just letting that garlic sweat off slightly. And there's one surefire way to make sure we know when pasta is cooked, and that's to try a bit. Yeah, so just the right punch of al dente. So at this point, I'm going to strip in some thyme. Just going to add a lovely little bit of earthy flavour. Obviously I'm using some optional bonus pesto as well, so I don't need to go crazy with the herbs. But just stripping in some thyme here. And I can just smell that garlic starting to catch, so I'm going to turn it off now. And I'm going to let it down with that beautiful lemon I got sent this morning in my veg box. Going to squeeze that lemon juice in there, which is going to help it emulsify into a sauce. Right, now, when we drain pasta, very important, put a mug under the colander. So I've got some of that pasta water there in that mug. So I'm going to add to the sauce, which helps it stay extra silky. Just put the heat back on gently. Add that pasta. And this is the point where I'm just going to chuck in that pesto. If you didn't want to use pesto, you could just use a bit of extra olive oil here. It would work just as well, to be honest. Serve this up. And I'm just going to finish it with some Parmesan cheese. So there we have pasta with courgette, lemon, garlic and thyme with some leftover pesto. Can't wait to tuck in. Okay, so I'm making breakfast this morning. This is one of my favourite recipes. I love all kinds of food, as you can probably tell from my video. I love meat dishes, love veggie dishes, and I love vegan dishes. And what's amazing is when you get a vegan dish that is even better than a classic. And I think this is one. So I'm going to make pancakes this morning, completely vegan pancakes with just 2 core ingredients. So this is gram flour, which is used an awful lot in Indian cooking, and it makes a really lovely pancake batter. Okay, so I've got 240 grams in here. This is for 3 people. And now what I need to do is I need to mix that with some water, and I want to weigh the water. So I want 100 grams more of water than I have flour. So 240 in there, so I want 340 grams of water. So I've got my jug there on the scale, and I'm just going to measure out that water. So we're going to add that to the mix, and this is a sweet pancake recipe, so I'm using some vanilla powder in here, just about a teaspoon, and then about a tablespoon of sugar in there, and just a little pinch of salt as well. Okay, and the great thing about this mix is you could make it savoury with some cheese and chives, something like that. It's a very versatile pancake batter. So I'm just going to give that a whisk up. It's looking a tiny bit thick, so I'm just going to put a tiny little drop of water in there. No eggs, no milk, just gram flour and water. And you can see that's kind of a nice loose consistency. It smells great because of the vanilla. And I'm just going to let that stand now for about 20 minutes, and then we're going to make our pancakes. So we're ready to make pancakes. I've got a frying pan here on a low heat. The heat management is really important when we're making a batch of pancakes, because obviously we don't want to get the pan too hot to begin with, because we're not going to burn the pancakes, but also the pan is going to get hotter as we're cooking, so we need to regulate the heat quite carefully. I've got my oven on quite low, about 120, just so that I can keep the ones that I've made warm while I'm making a batch for everybody. And I'm just going to go into the pan, because we're keeping it vegan, with some rapeseed oil. So a good coating on the bottom of the pan. You don't want to deep fry these pancakes, but you do want a good coating of oil to start with. Your first pancake's not always going to be your best one. We'll build up as we go along to the perfect ones, but they'll all be delicious. The great thing about this pancake batter is that they kind of come out really crispy and golden, almost kind of like Yorkshire pudding batter, like a sweet Yorkshire pudding batter. And they're really, really good. So just going to let that oil heat up, and then we're going to pop in our first pancake. Okay, so we just want a nice ladle full. That's literally about ½ an inch off the top of the ladle there. And we're just going to circle that into the pan. Okay. And just run it around pan carefully. Now we're just going to let it sit. Get a nice crust on that side, and then we're going to flip it over. And we're not going to do any silly pancake day flipping. because these lift out and flip over quite nicely with a fish slice. So you can see little air bubbles popping on the top here. Smell that vanilla, really nice. And we can just lift it up and have a little look. Just give that another moment. Okay, I'm going to flip this over. And hopefully you can see on top there we've got some nice crispy colour on top here. That's going to be a really lovely sweet treat. As I say, the first one you're not going to get as much colour on the others because the heat in the pan is going to increase. First one's a bit of a sacrificial lamb to start things off with, because you don't want to go in too hot, because by the end, as soon as you put your pancake mix in, it's just going to burn and you get black bits on it. You don't want that. So you want to build up slowly. I always take one for the team and have the first pancake on my plate. Just lift it up and check. Have another little minute on there. Right, I'm going to take this out now, pop it on a plate, and I'm just going to stick that in that low oven, keep warm while I make the rest. And you can see this is my second one. Now that I've got some heat going in the pan, I'm able to go a bit bigger with these. The first one's just like a little tester really. Once you start to see some smoke come off the sides, just lift it up, have a little look. That can have another minute. And you can see they're quite robust, they're very easy to flip. You've got that nice golden crust on top there. You see that nice colour on there, that's going to give you really nice crispy bits on your pancake. So I'm on to my third pancake now. Heat's regulating really nicely, not getting too hot. But those pancakes are sucking up some of that oil, so I'm just going to put a little bit more rapeseed oil in there. Run that round the pan, make sure it all gets nice and coated, and then just take that heat down ever so slightly. So we can always turn it back up. And whereas with the first one I was getting that like not a complete spoonful, now we know the heat's working, so we can go bigger. Pop that in there and quickly pick it up, run it round just to get maximum surface area on that pancake. If you can hear it just sizzling slightly around the edges, then the heat's perfect. If it goes in and it's kind of screaming at you, then you need to turn it down. Okay, there we go. Vegan pancakes made with ground flour, water, a bit of vanilla, a bit of sugar. They're nice and crispy on the outside, nice and fluffy. And obviously topping is your personal preference. For me, nice and simple, some maple syrup over the top. Don't scrimp with the maple syrup. There we go. And hopefully when we cut into that, nice crispy outside. And you've got nice, lovely fluffy inside. Perfect. Enjoy. Alright, so I got a really easy but really delicious cake for you today. It's a polenta, pistachio and olive oil cake. So I've got a bit of Italian vibe going on here, all in one bowl, into a cake tin, bang into the oven. Oven's preheated to 160. I've got various things measured out here, which I'll go through now. So 50 grams of plain flour. Not much flour in this because it's got olive oil in it, it's got pistachio nuts in it, keeps it nice and light and moist. So 200 grams of pistachio, which I've just put in the blender, put mine in my NutriBullet into a little powder there. And then we've got 50 grams of coarse polenta and 200 grams caster sugar and 200 grams of butter, which I just melted very slowly in a pan, and 100 milliliters of good extra virgin olive oil. And you're also going to need a teaspoon of baking powder, and you're going to need the zest and juice of an orange. I'm just going to whisk up these eggs with the sugar now. So I've got 3 eggs in here, which I've just cracked into the bowl, and we're just going to pop the caster sugar in. And we're just going to whisk that together till it looks nice and light and fluffy. So your eggs and sugar are done when they're just mixed up and they look nice and glossy like that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to pour this melted butter into our olive oil. So got a nice jug of just saturated fat there, which is beautiful. And we're just going to slowly pour this in like we would if we were making a mayonnaise. So we're going to emulsify it. It's going to get nice and thick and glossy. So I'm going to put the whisk on its lowest setting and I'm just going to very slowly incorporate this. So I've added that oil and butter very, very slowly, a little bit at a time, and now you've got a nice thick glossy emulsion there. And now, very simply, just going to chuck in these dry ingredients. So in with your pistachio nuts, in with your polenta, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, in with our flour, just a little bit at a time. You can sieve it if you want, I'm not going to bother. Okay, and the last thing we need is orange zest and then the juice of the orange. So zest is done, now in with the juice. Watch out for pips. Okay, and we're just going to whisk all this up now, just incorporate it. Okay, got a nice thick, it's got a lovely green from those pistachios. You can smell the orange. We're just going to fold that out into a cake tin. Okay, and that's going to go into the oven now at 160 for about 55 minutes. It'll be done when you can put a toothpick in it, bring it out, and it comes out clean. So I checked my cake after 50 minutes and it was still a little bit wet in the middle, so I gave it another 5 and now it's come out and it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. It's got a nice crust on top, should be nice and moist in the middle. So I'm going to leave it to cool and then we'll slice it. Okay, so I'm going to slice into this cake now from the middle. Lovely green colour there from the pistachios, and I would just simply serve that with either some ice cream or some clotted cream. So there you go. Polenta, pistachio, olive oil cake with some orange zest and orange juice. Nice Italian cake.
He's going the distance.